Good evening. I will be talking on the surgical options in infective keratitis. Now, surgical interventions are done for a variety of disorders, particularly infectious disorders, and one has to recognize and promptly manage such conditions. And these are a host of conditions where surgical intervention was needed, and you would have seen many of these examples. Now, the aim of the surgical options are mainly to restore structural integrity, to resolve the infection, and most important, we have to always remember, is to visually rehabilitate the patient as well. Before we actually go into penetrating keratoplasty, there are a host of ancillary procedures that we need to think of and do, which are equally important in the management or in the successful management of infectious keratitis. And these can go right from tarsorrhaphy and unfortunately up to evisceration. And this is just to show you an example of a tarsorrhaphy and an entropion correction. Now, surgical debridement is a very useful tool in our armamentarium, especially for non-perforated ulcers. This has both diagnostic as well as therapeutic value, and it's of particular importance in ulcers with pigmented fungi. Tissue adhesives is another very tool in our toolkit, and these can be used for either impending perforations or even for very small, maybe sub 2 mm perforations. Other procedures like the amniotic membrane transplant and conjunctival graft are also useful before we actually consider penetrating or lamellar procedures for infectious disorders. Now, the tissue adhesives that are available in the market are not exactly FDA approved for corneal use. However, you can have an offline use on it, and always either do it at the slit lamp or at the operating microscope. Make sure you have the surface is dry before you apply the tissue glue. Sometimes you will have to go into the chamber and put in some air, and just put just about enough tissue adhesive that is required. And conjunctival flaps, there is a resurgence of this technique during the COVID times. It can be either a full thickness flap like the Gunderson's flap, or it can be also limited conjunctival flaps, especially useful in peripheral ulcers. Important that you always need to remove the Tenon's capsule, as it is an elastic tissue, and you should do epithelial debridement around the ulcer. And these are examples of, one is a neurotropic keratitis and one is a peripheral perforated ulcer where conjunctival flaps were done. And here you can see that one has to dissect the tenons and do some epithelial debridement before proceeding with a successful conjunctival hood. Now, coming to the corneal transplants, there are various therapeutic options available here. Of importance are the patch grafts, the overlay grafts, the lamellar procedures, and finally the penetrating procedure as such. Now, this is just an old graph in 2006, more than a decade ago, on 261 cases, where my indications for transplant, the most important was infective keratitis. And a patch graft is very useful, mainly for peripheral ulcers. It can also be useful for small central ulcers. It can be either a temporary procedure or a permanent procedure. Usually these grafts are for ulcers 5 millimeters or less, and try our best to avoid the visual axis. Not always possible. It is basically nothing but a lamellar graft. The visual rehabilitation, however, has to come by a secondary procedure of a full thickness graft later on. And these are some examples of patch graft where I have done for some for peripheral perforation, and that last one, that is the video on the bottom, is a patch graft done for a Hansen's disease patient who had a non-healing sterile defect. And as you know, in these cases, it is a full thickness graft is not a good idea. They never work. So here we opted for a patch graft and it worked beautifully. There are again some more examples of a patch graft just to show how useful it is, especially in that peripheral ulcer on your left. So rather than going for a really big large graft, in such a case you can do a peripheral patch graft and later do a full thickness procedure if required. The video on your right is actually showing a patch graft done for a recurrent pterygium and not for an infective etiology. The other sometimes used procedure is when you do not have very good tissue, you have an emergency, you can do a lamellar keratoplasty, and this is a good alternative to have in the event of an emergency. The disadvantage of this procedure is the poor visual acuity, and you cannot handle the exudates within the chamber. So, but the advantages is those of a lamellar procedure. And this is one case. You can do a deep lamellar keratoplasty in certain cases of infective keratitis, mainly with anterior 2/3 infections. And this is a DLK which I had done long ago, and as you can see, it went off very well. This was a prolonged non-healing ulcer. Decided not to do a full thickness procedure, went ahead with a deep lamellar keratoplasty, and that exudate you see within the chamber, within the area of interest, is actually within the anterior. It's an organized hypopium. It's within the anterior chamber and not within the cornea, as one may think. And sometimes I do this overlay graft. This is with very bad peripheral ulcers. If I don't have a good cornea, I just take a button with the Descemet's membrane and suture it completely over it, and this works magically. It works. And this is a case where I have done for a perforated Murins ulcer actually, and I extended this procedure to a few other cases with very bad peripheral perforations where doing full thickness procedure was not feasible for whatever reason. And finally, when you come to the mother of all procedures in infective keratitis, that is the penetrating keratoplasty, one has to carefully assess and always know that this is the best option for vision. So always use good quality donor tissue. Do not use poor tissue, calling it a therapeutic procedure. And although the literature, they say the prognosis is poor, I can tell you most of these cases do very well. So that's a matter of debate, I suppose. But before you go on to keratoplasty, clinical judgment is very essential. The indications would include either perforated ulcer or an impending perforation, a large ulcer threatening the limbus where you don't want to go ahead and have the headache of doing a scleral corneoscleral graft, or a non-healing ulcer. And these are some of the indications in keratitis. This is also a very old data done just on, it's in 2006, where most of the corneal transplants were actually done for perforated corneal ulcers. And what are the principles when you do a corneal transplant in such cases? Know very well, these are very difficult procedures. So you may have to take a Fleringa ring, or you may have to take the support of superior inferior rectus. It's always a good idea to have suction trephines, especially for perforated ulcers where the globe is extremely soft. Centration is always problematic in these cases. Many of these cases need very large grafts. Sometimes they need eccentric grafts, and scleral suturing, etc., can cause bleeding. you have to appropriately size the donor cornea buttons, and very important, always avoid compression of the peripheral angle to avoid secondary glaucoma. And whenever you are doing on an infected area, remember this is nothing but an abscess. So use the same surgical principles that you would do in any abscess. Excise all the infected tissue, remove all the membranes and exudates from within the chamber, within the angle, over the lens, under the iris, wherever. You have to meticulously remove all these exudates. Try and viscodissect or even mechanically dissect the angle to open it up. Ensure that the peripheral angle is formed, very important, and never ever handle the lens in an infective case. Usually you will use interrupted sutures in these cases. Also, when you form the anterior chamber in such cases, always form the anterior chamber with BSS. Preferably you can also use air, because this will push back the iris lens diaphragm and avoid damage to the lens, to the uvea. Try to handle the bleeding, try to handle any pupillary deficiencies, and always bury your knots. So these are some of the demonstrative cases that I have put up. So basically here just showing sometimes you have to do other procedures like peritomy, because your sutures would go there. Don't suture over the conjunctiva. You have to appropriately size your graft. Make sure that all the infective tissue is included within the excised button. Make sure that you remove all the debris, not only from within the chamber but from over the cornea before you actually trephine it out. I'm just showing in these cases how I have meticulously gone about removing these exudates. And in the next two cases, basically showing you the same procedures. Sometimes I use handheld trephines, sometimes I use suction trephines. And the next cases show just especially the case on the left shows that after excising the cornea, I saw very bad, very advanced, advanced cataract, but whatever the temptation, no handling of the lens. It's very important, because if you remove that barrier, you are increasing the chances of endophthalmitis many fold. So do not handle the lens in such situations. And as you can see, in all my cases I use very good tissue. And these are few of the other examples of perforation or impending perforation. And post-operatively, try and use specific antimicrobials, take a clinical judgment on steroids, manage complications appropriately, and try to avoid reinfection. Is pretty uncommon actually, not what the literature says. Secondary glaucoma can be quite common. Other problems like epithelial defects are common. Handle them as and when they occur. Regrafts, as you can see in my old data, regrafts, primary reinfection of the graft is extremely rare. And as you can see, hardly just 4% of the cases, and it's even less now. And of course, when you have to manage this, most of the time you need to do regrafts. Sometimes you have to go as far, if they don't work out, you have to go as far as a keratoprosthesis in some of these cases. That is long term. And the secondary glaucoma, you should be well versed in glaucoma procedures. You should be well versed in Ceton procedures, just to show how much you need to do to actually successfully manage an infection over the cornea when you surgically interfere with it. In summary, less than 2 millimeters perforation or non-perforation, you can use either glue or amniotic membrane. If it is less than 5 millimeters, go ahead for a patch graft or an overlay graft. And more than 5 millimeters perforation, I think it is better to go ahead for penetrating keratoplasty. In very rare instances, you may get away with a lamellar keratoplasty. Thank you so much for watching this extensive presentation.